Hello, my friends. And Trump keeps showing that he is on Russia's side despite the shelling of Ukrainian territory and despite the fact that he threatened to impose more sanctions on Russia. Listen to what he says.
I believe him. I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine, and I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards. As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week, early, and we're talking. Would I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, they're bombing the hell out of them right.
I wonder what stopped Trump from providing Ukraine with a major land lease so that the Ukrainian forces could wiping out the Russians and start negotiation from a position of strength. Overall, we'll wait to see how the talks go, but something tells me that it will be really hard to make a deal. And definitely share your opinion in the comments. Trump was also asked how he feels about the fact that stopping aid and providing intelligence to Ukraine is benefiting Russia.
Do you, Mr. President, think that Vladimir Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine?
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now. He wants to get it ended, and I think Ukraine wants to get it ended, but I don't see it's crazy. They're taking tremendous punishment. I don't quite get it, but I suspect, Michael, he probably wants to get it ended.
He does, Mr. President. The Russians are taking incredible losses on the front. As the president
They
has
both
said,
are.
this is a meat grinder of people, of material, of national treasure, and no one else has any solutions except to let this war continue forever. But I'll add, the president has had multiple conversations and a visit from President Macron of France, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom. We have the NATO Secretary General coming next week. We have this meeting with the Ukrainians. We've had it with the Russians. All of this in the president's first month in his leadership. We will engage in the shuttle diplomacy, and we will continue to use his leadership and what leverage we have to get both sides of the peace table. It's not going to be easy, but President Trump.
This war should have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen. So a lot of other things shouldn't have happened too.
Overall, friends, drop your thoughts in the comments. Trump was also asked.
Put out on your social media post today that Russia is pounding Ukraine.
That's right.
Why not provide Ukraine with air defenses? And what happens, Mr. President, when Ukraine runs out of the Patriot missile batteries?
That's a good question, because I have to know that they want to settle. I don't know that they want to settle. If they don't want to settle,
Overall, it's hard to understand Trump's logic. Meanwhile, the fighting on the front lines continues. Let's start with the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. There is more good news coming in about the Ukrainian counterattacks. Soldiers report that they've managed to secure positions on the outskirts of the village of Shevchenko. This hasn't been officially confirmed yet, so we'll have to wait for more substantial results. But from what's known so far, the front line has been pushed back approximately 3 kilometers from Pokrovsk. Therefore, any breakthroughs toward Pokrovsk, if they happen, will likely be carried out by small reconnaissance groups. The Russians still don't understand that they have no chance of taking Pokrovsk, so they're trying to regain lost positions in the Kotlin area. However, all the attacks have been repelled and there are no changes. The fighting around Dachinsk and the village of Promyn continues as before. Unfortunately, the situation with shelling is not improving. The Russians are heavily shelling Pokrovsk and hitting the area in Dobropilya. There is significant destruction and casualties. Yesterday, reports came in about the destruction of 4 apartment buildings. As for the frontline situation, the Ukrainian forces describe it like this. In the Pokrovsk area, Russian attacks and our counterattacks are ongoing. The intensity of the fighting is at its maximum. The number of Russian attacks hasn't decreased overall. Our actions were effective, which initially slowed down the Russians' advance and then allowed for counterattacks. Overall, on a number of sections of the front, we managed to overcome chaos in command. Not everywhere, but in many places. This, of course, helps. I hope that soon this issue will disappear on our side everywhere. As for successes or setbacks on our side, we'll discuss it later because the battles are still ongoing. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians are breaking through near the village of Nadezhdenka, also storming Konstantinopel and intensively shelling the village. At the same time, they are still trying to break through toward Oleksiivka, but there have been no changes in the past 24 hours. The Ukrainian forces continue to hold the defense as much as possible in the direction of Velyka Novosilka. The Russians are continuing the assault in 4 directions, trying to advance toward the Donetsk region's borders. Unfortunately, they have had some successes and they are periodically able to make progress. However, there have been no new changes over the past day. The Ukrainian forces are still managing to hold the line, although, I repeat, the situation remains very difficult. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians continue to break through toward Mala Tokmachka in the fields near Nestoryanka. They are storming Mali Sherbaki, Pyatikhatki, and Kamiansk. All frontline settlements are under heavy shelling. The situation has seriously worsened. Drones are actively being used, and the Russians haven't reduced the activity. However, the Ukrainian forces are still managing to hold the defense, and there have been no changes along the front line. In the Kherson direction, shelling continues, but there have been no new offensive actions. The situation on the islands has stabilized for now, and the Russians haven't advanced further. In the direction of Toretsk, the Russians continue the activity. Fighting continues for Leonidivka, and there are clashes in the central part of Toretsk. And there is a high probability that the Ukrainian forces continue counterattacks and new successes may come soon. At the same time, the Russians are attempting to storm Deliivka, but there has been no progress and the front line hasn't changed in the past 24 hours. In the direction of Chasiv Yar, the Russians are trying to stretch the southern flank and are storming Stupochki. They are also breaking through in the area of Ozaryanivka, and as before, fighting continues in the central part of the city. Additionally, shelling continues, but there have been no changes along the front line in the past 24 hours. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are once again attempting to storm Bilogorivka and Grigorivka, but they have had no success and the situation hasn't changed in the past 24 hours. In the direction of Lyman, the Russians continue to storm Yampolivka, trying to break through to the villages of Kolodezi and Lipove. There have been no changes in the past 24 hours. In the direction of Borova, the Russians are not showing significant activity, with attacks only being recorded in Boguslavka. There have been no other offensive actions. Through the south, there have been no assaults, and the situation remains unchanged. In the Kupiansk direction, there is currently a lull with no new assaults from the Russians and no reports of new shelling. There is also no activity in the area of Dvorichna, and the front line has remained unchanged over the past 24 hours. In the Kharkiv direction, shelling continues without offensive actions. The fighting, as before, is only focused on Vovchansk, but the situation is under control and there have been no breakthroughs by the Russians. In the Kursk direction, the Russians continue to actively shell the Sumy region. They also conduct around 30 assaults daily from various sites, but so far they have had no success and the front line remains unchanged. However, the Ukrainian forces continue to report that the situation there remains very difficult. Ukrainian soldiers say changes may be coming soon. In the Kursk region, there are chances to somehow improve the situation, but not very large ones. I'm not sure sudden significant results there is a good idea, so the coming weeks will show whether the situation can stabilize or we will witness a retreat. The risks of retreat we won't be on Russian territory anymore, but the direction will remain. We could even end up in the defense of Sumy. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.